Hi, I'm R.G. Absher with the Wilkes-Barre chapter of the Over Mountain Victory Trail Association. And the next demonstration will be Burl Childers that's going to talk about 18th century currency and other artifacts of the period.
Hello, my name is Burl Childers. I'm here to give a demonstration on currency and a few artifacts. And what we'll start with today is there was a shortage of currency in the colonies in 1780 for the simple reason the king's idea of the colonies was to make him money, not for him to furnish them money. So he wouldn't allow the British to bring currency over here. So the first things that was used, of course, we had the French coming out of what is now Canada. They were trading to the Indians for their furs. They was using trade beads, and they'd trade for the furs, and they'd take them and sell them and make money off of it. So these was the first items. They also had deer skins and beaver pelts. And of course the beaver pelts was the most expensive, and they was used to make top hats over in England. And what they traded was the trade beads. And here's some examples of the trade beads. And in the colonies, these was the main ones that was used in the colonies for currency. You have the white clamshell beads. I got two different versions of them. Took 5 of them to make a penny's worth. And then we had the quahog clamshell beads, which you can see the purple in them. And they came from the quahog clamshell, which grows in the ocean, Atlantic Ocean up north where the waters are cold. And they still gather them today. After the beads, in the 1700s, colony of Massachusetts sent some delegates over to England, and they asked and got permission to mint coins. And the first coins that was minted in what is now Canada, United States, and Mexico are these 3 coins right here. This is a shilling, these are shillings, these are, then they have a 6-pence, which pence is a British word for penny, and then the 3-pence. These would have been made of silver. They've been bright like this one, which this one is made of silver. And this particular one is called a pillow dollar because of the pillows on each side of the globes. And they only made these silver ones here for only about 2 months because they were simple. They had NE on one side, and the value of it, which this is 12 pence as being a shilling, and people could counterfeit them or make fake ones. So then they started making what is called a tree series. Of course, these are shillings, and you have the oak tree, the willow tree, and the pine tree. And of course you have the shillings, it's 12 pence, and then you have the 6 pence and the 3 pence. And they started making these in 1682. And after about a year of making these, the Parliament sent word back over here that they're going to have to stop minting coins because the king didn't want them minting them anymore. So the people that was running the colony of Massachusetts got together and says, well, we still need currency. How are we going to come up with currency? Well, somebody come up with the idea. These are stamped 1652. So just why don't we continue making these coins? And the king wasn't over here and the Parliament wasn't over here. They won't know how many we minted. And so that's what they done. They continued minting the coins, only they put the year 1652 on them. And in 1680, they were still minting those coins. Of course, if they'd have got caught, that would have been too bad. Now, another coin I want to talk about that was in the colonies was called a Spanish mill silver dollar. And of course, it is made also of silver. And there is something unique about the Spanish mill silver dollar. If you've ever heard the story or the words pieces of 8 or piece of 8, this is what they were talking about. And to give you an example, I made me a coin out of lead because I didn't want to cut my good one up into pieces. that would have been cut into 8 pieces. And of course, this is $1, 100 pennies, and each one of these pieces is 12.5 pennies. And I'm guessing that a blacksmith would have had a die that he could set on this and cut it into 8 equal pieces. Because if they were shaved down and was not the correct size, the merchants would have a pair of scales and they would weigh it. They knew how much each piece was weighed, and if it didn't weigh enough, they'd only pay them the corresponding amount of merchandise for that coin. Because people was bad to shave the edges on the coins and take a little silver off of them. Now, that is the currency demonstration. Now I got a few artifacts. We're going to start with some Native American Indian artifacts. We got the arrows, all of them made of stone. And then we have the shark teeth. And this right here is odorous shark tooth. Lived up to 60 million years ago. And then we have a megalodon tooth, and the megalodon lived 3.6 million years ago. A little bit older than I am. And another artifact here, this is a fossil that is a trilobite. There was over 17,000 species of these. And I'm just wondering who counted them. And it's over 250 million years old. Then of course this is a deer antler. And the next item, we'll go to the watch. This is the type of watch. And we'll show you that first of all, it is a watch on this side. And the way they wound this watch, it is spring operated, and they put the key in, wind it, and it would run. They would have to wind it every day. And this watch, they came up with this watch in 1672 when the king over in England invented the waistcoat. That's what this is a waistcoat. And it had pockets in it. So up until that time, the watch was a cylinder about 2 inches long, about 1 inch diameter, and they could attach a chain and they wore it around the neck, exposed to the elements. So this watch would be kept in the pocket and most of the time be out of the elements. Now another artifact, of course you've seen the long gun. This is the types of pistols that the captains and stuff would have had. It is a black powder flintlock, and of course your flint's there, got your peephole. The last instructions at the Battle of Kings Mountain, which this is a good depiction of the battle at Kings Mountain. There's on the hillside, and the Patriots is on the bottom, and Patrick Ferguson's men was on top. And the last orders they was given was to tie their waistcoat, tie their overcoat back out of the way, and then pick and prime their peephole. Being they had went overnight, and of course your dew falls and things get wet, he wanted fresh powder. Clean the peephole is right down in there and goes over to the barrel. They would clean it out, put fresh prime in here, fresh black powder, and then it would be ready to fire. That was the last orders they had before the battle started. This is a wild boar skull. And after receiving this thing, I was studying about it on the internet, and I found out something kind of fascinating. Now, I don't know if you can see this or not, but on these tusks, you have indentions in them. Well, every time this wild boar opened and closed his mouth, he had smaller tusks at the bottom, and it'd come up and it would sharpen these tusks here, so that kept them sharp all the time. And you talk about ripping somebody's leg open. that will do it right there. Some other artifacts. We'll start with this one. This was an arrowhead, but the Native American Indians changed it over into a hide scraper. On the furs, they had to go on the back of them after they were dressed out. They'd have to scrape out excess meat and anything else on there, and then they would cure the hides out. So this was repurposed from an arrowhead to a hide scraper. This right here was found about 10 miles north of Taylorsville in an orchard. This is the only rock. The owner of the orchard is a friend of mine, and he said this was the only rock made of this material out there on his land. And what it is, I had it checked out by archaeologists, and they said that was a hand axe that the Native American Indians used to cut small twigs and other things. Of course, this right here is a wore-down tomahawk that the Native American Indians made, and it would have been about that long, and they keep sharpening it, and it would wear it down. And of course, this one still could be used to crack hickory nuts if they wanted to. This item right here came from Arizona. It is a piece of petrified wood, and it's a little older than I am. Don't know exactly how old, but pretty old. This artifact, this rock right here came out of my backyard, and the reason I got it, mica was your first insulation in appliances, anything that used heat, or electricity. The mica was used, they'd used it in the glass for the doors. It come in big sheets, and this shows you exactly how it was formed. That's a layer of mica right there in amongst the other rock. This map, of course, is a copy of an original map that was printed in England in 1777. William Lenore up at Fort Defiance, that built his house up there, was a surveyor. And he probably had a map like this. It is a map of the 13 colonies. And if you look way down here, this is Georgia. These colonies went all the way to the Mississippi River from the Atlantic coast. And of course you had Florida down here. The Spaniards were still down here in Florida in 1780. They hadn't been run out yet. And you have Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, then Virginia. Look how big Virginia is. It goes all the way up past the Great Lakes into what is now Canada. It was the largest colony of all. Then you had all your small colonies. You have Pennsylvania, you have Delaware, Maryland down in here, you have New Jersey, New York, and then the New England colonies up in here. That shows you an idea of what the colonies looked like before the Revolutionary War. Now, that's it.